My guest today is Tarryn Leigh Green, founder of NYUM Meals, the UAE's first chef-created, nutritionally balanced frozen meal company for children. Before launching NYUM Meals, Tarryn spent more than 2 decades as an executive in food product development in the UK, working with some of UK's leading food brands and retailers. When she moved to the UAE for her husband's job, she soon realized 2 realities that would change the course of her career. 1, the roles she had built her career around didn't really exist in the UAE. Secondly, navigating life as a mother of 2 young boys, she saw a gap in the market facing many families, including those in the UAE. Which is, how do you consistently provide fresh, nutritious meals for young children when time is often your scarcest resource? As she searched for solutions, she discovered that the kind of clean label, nutritionally balanced children's meals she wanted for her own family simply didn't exist. What began as a personal frustration became the foundation for NYUM Meals, a company that is designed to support modern families by making healthy, convenient food more accessible without asking parents to compromise on quality. It was around the time of the pandemic that the idea came to her. Her stepfather, Warren, who eventually became her co-founder, challenged her to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start building. Over the years, competitors have come and gone, leaving it the largest company in its category within the UAE. But NYUM Meals is more than a food company. It has helped pioneer an entirely new category in the UAE while also contributing to broader conversations around children's nutrition, food standards, and healthier eating habits for families. That work is particularly relevant in a country facing one of the world's highest rates of childhood obesity, where nutrition has become an increasingly important public health issue. I wanted to feature Tarryn because her story offers a window into a part of the world many listeners may not fully understand. The UAE is often viewed through the lens of growth and opportunity, but building a business there also means navigating a highly transient population, constantly evolving consumer behaviors, and the challenge of creating long-term customer habits in a market where people are frequently coming and going. So creating an entirely new category under those conditions requires more than a great product. I was intrigued. How did she do it? But when I first met Tarryn during a pre-interview, it was unlike any I've conducted before. At the time, she was speaking to me from Mauritius, where what was planned to be a short holiday with her 2 young sons had turned into a much longer stay than planned. As the conflict involving Iran escalated and daily life in the UAE became punctuated by air raid alerts, missile interceptions, and the uncertainty that accompanies regional unrest, Tarryn made the decision to take her boys on a brief getaway. The goal was simple: give her 2 neurodivergent sons a break from the constant sounds of explosions and sirens. Her husband remained in the UAE, continuing to manage work and family responsibilities from home, while Tarryn focused on creating a sense of calm and normalcy for their children. What was meant to be a short vacation ultimately became an extended stay as the situation continued to unfold. As we spoke, I found myself thinking about the reality many leaders face that rarely makes its way into business headlines. Businesses are built while raising children, supporting families, navigating uncertainty, and carrying responsibilities that don't pause simply because a company needs you to perform. At the very moment Tarryn was trying to create stability for her family, she was also leading a business affected by supply chain disruptions, changing customer behavior, and the broader ripple effects of regional instability. It was a powerful reminder that leadership is often less about controlling circumstances and more about remaining anchored when circumstances are beyond your control. Here's my conversation with Tarryn Leigh Green.
My father's had a restaurant since I was 5, and I would be there whenever I could. I'd sit and watch him trimming the meat because he has aged hung meat. So you have these amazing steaks, and he still has it today, many, many years later, 36 years later. That's quite insane. There's not many restaurants that you can say that about. So yeah, I'm really, really proud of them. And I think it's, I have this blend of backgrounds. My father's South African, my mum's English. And I think South Africans are so passionate about food as well. We have such an eclectic mix, a little melting pot. It's a bit like Dubai or the UAE, where, there's so many different people who've come from all over the world over the years. And this culmination has resulted in Indian and, sort of African meals, and the flavors are so punchy, and it's just, it's exciting, and the produce is amazing. Obviously, it's just such an incredible country, and definitely some of the most fantastic restaurants and cuisines that you can come up with. But I mean, it was never a doubt in my mind that I was going to be going into this industry.
You've been in it quite a while, because before NYUM Meals, you had a pretty extensive career in food development in the UK.
Yeah, so I trained to be a chef because fundamentally, whilst I knew I'd be in product development, I'd had a long, hard conversation with my father, and he said, this just is not an industry you want to be in. And so I said, no, don't worry, I'm going into food product development. It's totally different.
Your father didn't want you to be a chef, even though he was a chef and owned a restaurant. He was like, don't be me.
He said, look at me, you don't want to be like me. And I said, okay, don't worry, I'm way ahead of the curve. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to be a product developer. And whilst most product developers go down sort of the food technology route, for me, it was really important to understand food. You can learn about the science and the nutritional background around food. And so many of us now have systems that help us do that. But fundamentally, understanding how ingredients go together, or how you can substitute something for something else. And that's really been pivotal to my whole career, really. And I'm so glad I went that way. And I went down that route. And as I say, I went across to the UK straight after I studied. And yeah, it was just, head in, diving into food manufacturing, which is insane in the UK and one of the leading, countries in the world when it comes to food product development.
What is food development?
Oh, my jacket isn't, I haven't got a white lab coat on. But it is a little bit of a science. I'd say the difference between a product development chef and a classic chef is that I think we're a little bit more diligent and we're more controlled. So the main thing when it comes to product development is consistency and quality. So once you've established your recipe, the biggest thing that your customer wants is consistency. They don't want to buy their macaroni and cheese this time and it tastes different the next time. And that might be, in a retail capacity, but it's also very relevant in a restaurant capacity, because, if you're going to go to Carluccio's, for example, and have their lasagna, you want it to taste exactly the same as it did the last time you had it. And when it comes to chefs, we're very guilty of tasting and going, well, it needs a bit more salt, or it needs a little bit of that and a little bit more of this. And you can't do that in manufacturing, not only because of the consistency, but also because there's so many other factors. If you think of things like wastage, food costs, labor costs. And so it's really imperative we set these standard operating procedures when it comes to these recipes, so that we can ensure that every single time that product is made, it's exactly the same.
Where did the inspiration for NYUM Meals come?
Well, it wasn't born out of a business plan, I'll tell you that much. It was born more out of frustration, if I'm honest, and probably a lot of guilt. So, it's a case of when I got over here, I realized that there really just wasn't anything nutritious, healthy, balanced, and clean. Oh my goodness, with clean ingredients for children here. It just didn't exist. And so for me, that's where the disconnect hit. And I thought, I have an opportunity. I'm someone who's got loads of ideas and wants to do loads of things, but I needed a little bit of encouragement, let me put it that way. And it was my family that did that. And Warren, my business partner, who is also my stepfather, said to me, Tarryn, it's COVID. Things are just, our industry's down and out. If you're going to do it now, jump. It was the scariest thing I've ever done, I think, other than becoming a parent. And yeah, the other thing I had to learn was to just get going. So I'm a perfectionist. And so I wanted to have everything.
What made you make the leap? What was it that said, okay, you know what, I'm going to quit this really amazing corporate job and go full-time into NYUM Meals?
Because it was a corporate job, and I am just not corporate material. It was like selling my soul to the devil. I'm just not made for that. I'm really not. And I've been told on multiple occasions in multiple businesses that I am not made for corporate. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I was getting paid and getting paid well, but what on earth am I doing? At that moment where
your anchor brought you back, I guess, right? Because the purpose and mission wasn't there.
100%. Do you know what I think it was? Is I think I missed my eldest son, one of his school events, and it devastated me. I was truly, truly devastated. And I just thought, no, this is rubbish. I'm never going to get that time back. I can always go and work for them again, but I will never get this time back. And don't get me wrong. I obviously still, I'm not there all the time, but I'm able to make sure that when it counts, when it really matters, I'm there. And that's important.
NYUM Meals, though, was the first to market in this pre-prepared, flash frozen, fresh meals, chef-ready meals for children. And today, y'all are really the only ones that exist in the UAE in this category. What challenges did you face in order to bring this and to even sustain now this business in the UAE?
How we approached NYUM was critical for our sustainability. So we're not just a brand, we're at an intersection of nutrition, parenting, retail, regulation, behavioral change. It's a lifestyle that we're focusing on really. And in the UAE, it's a very unique dynamic because you've got this melting pot of international population with very high standards of living, but also very heavily reliant on convenience.
I think what was surprising that you told me this last time, the first time we talked, was that child obesity is one of the highest in the world. Why is that? I mean, is that because of the lack of activity? Is it the food? What's driving that?
I think it's a combination of things. Again, you've got so many different ethnicities with lots of different backgrounds, lots of education levels, and also the weather. Fundamentally, we have a good portion of our year where children can't even really go outside to play. We're already hitting about 37 degrees on average day. And that's, we're only in April. So what happens is that these children, tend to then be quite housebound. I mean, don't get me wrong. This country's incredible. We have got so many facilities available, indoor activities and play areas. And I mean, you name it, we've got it. But that's also, means that parents have to have the ability to take their children to those sorts of things. And so, yeah, it is tricky. I mean, my kids, my youngest goes to a PE trainer twice a week. He goes and sees her. He does CrossFit with her. If you aren't actively promoting a healthier lifestyle, it's so easy for these children to put on weight. Even at school, when it gets hotter, they don't go outside at lunchtime. They'll stay indoors. So the level of activity that comes naturally with children is dramatically reduced during these hotter periods. And then I do think that there is, unfortunately, a situation where people just simply don't have the time to be able to make food from scratch. And that's where we came in. That's why we're here. We're here to help. And so, because, boy, I know what mum guilt feels like. And yeah, that's why we're here.
So how is NYUM Meals fundamentally different?
Well, every meal is nutritionally balanced. So I develop all the recipes. And as I say, I'm really fortunate to have over 20 years worth of product development experience. And also having been in the UK at a time when they were reducing salt levels and sugar levels naturally within meals. And the government approached it really well. So they had targets every year. And that meant that just by reducing it little by little every year on year, people naturally became used to it rather than just suddenly dropping salt and sugar levels. And then people wouldn't want to be eating that food anymore. It also meant that we had to be a bit more clever about how we approach things. So none of our meals have added salt, free salt, or any refined sugars in them. Everything, all the sugar in there is naturally existing sugars that will be in the vegetables. And so it was really, I will use things like Marmite, for example, that will bring out natural flavors. It brings out something that we call umami, which is that sort of that broadened flavor, that six flavor, if you like, using things like star anise as well. That also encourages more flavor, something that sort of in the past MSG was used to bring out those flavors. Now, again, that is an E number. We don't have any E numbers in our meals. So we're clean label. We have no preservatives, additives, any nasty ingredients in them, no added salt, no added sugar. All of our meals are nutritionally balanced, so either green or amber in terms of their nutritional ranking. And we have 2 of their 5 a day, which is something that I've had to educate a lot of people about here in the UAE. It's not something that is known or understood. So 1 of your 5 a day is something that WHO started, although children should be having 5. And 1 portion of fruit and vegetable equates to 40 grams for children. And not everything constitutes a vegetable or a good fruit, if you like. So something like a potato is not considered 1 of your 5 a day because it's so high in starch. And the nutritional value is not as good as something like a sweet potato, which has got so much more nutritional value in it. So that would be considered 1 of your 5 a day. And by making simple, small tweaks and substitutions, I'm able to make something that children are familiar with, but there's more nutritional sort of value added nutrition within each meal that they're getting and gaining. And so parents can sit and relax and go, okay, they're getting 2 of their 5 a day. They've got 80 grams of vegetables in this meal. It's naturally balanced. And best of all, because children are, my biggest challenge are getting the kids. You've got to win them over. And when you see a child eat your meal and not know that they're eating 80 grams of vegetables, it's not necessarily about tricking them, but it's about sort of building and establishing that flavor palette within the child, and also getting them to understand what is healthy. And eventually you start building and growing. So we have meals where they're completely hidden and the children don't know they're there. And then we've got other meals where you can start to see, bits of carrot or peas and that kind of thing. So the children are then starting to understand that actually it tastes nice, but I can see the vegetable and that's okay. A healthy foundation that they can then grow into healthy adults, because I think we all know now that fundamentally, if you don't get it right in the early years, it's so much harder to get it right when you're older.
Tarryn Leigh, you put so much thought and process into kind of what the ingredients are, and even the process to the flash freeze your meals so that it's not like that traditional frozen TV dinner that I grew up, wanting. So take us through from like kitchen to customer. How does NYUM operate today?
So we really wanted to approach it differently. And whilst it was in my head, that's what I thought, okay, now I've got to go and find a factory or a kitchen or this and that. And again, I've been so blessed to have this incredible amount of wisdom in my life. And he said to me, but why? Why do we have to invest in the brick and mortar? And then that's going to be all on your shoulders and you're going to be focusing on all of that. And it was like a revelation. I thought, you're absolutely right, because that's not what I want to be focusing on. I don't want to focus on whether or not we've got petit pois, in stock or, yellow or orange sweet potatoes. I want to know that the batch that's being made today is absolutely consistent, top quality, and meets all of our standards. That's what's important. And so we approached it differently. We decided to invest in a good manufacturing partner, a local partner. That was important about sustainability. We wanted to ensure that the carbon footprint, is minimized, but also investing in the country as well. And that's what the UAE is about. I think so many of us have come here, all of us, and if you consider us as expats, have come here to improve our lives, to build our dreams. And so, we've partnered up with a manufacturing partner that we trust. And I have a dedicated team of chefs that once I've developed a recipe, will then go into the kitchen, the production kitchen, and I will then do trials with the chefs. And we'll scale it. So first we'll play around, make sure that it kind of meets the same, what I'm trying to achieve. Then we'll look at scaling. So scaling is never straightforward. Taking something and making 1 meal versus taking something and making 1,000 meals and then even further. requires a skill set.
How big is your chef team?
So we have a dedicated team of around 6 chefs trained in various different areas. So there might be those that are bespoke to cooking and develop cooking our sauces and our ragouts. And then we have those that are more focused on the assembly part of things. Okay. So all of our meals are hand assembled, but when it comes to the assembly, we'll have more people involved. It's really important that at every stage, we're ensuring that, everything is adhered to and maintained and consistent.
Where do you come in?
So I'm in touch with the facility on a daily basis in terms of understanding what is needed, what might be missing. Once we've trialed the recipe and I'm happy with it and on a scaled version, it then goes to costing. We'll make sure that we've got all the right ingredients. That can be quite challenging in the region, especially at the moment. But, we can have times where we might not be able to get a particular ingredient. So it's really important that essentially I'll almost have backup ingredients in the event of. So sometimes we simply can't make something because that ingredient, there is no alternative. And then there are times where I can say, okay, well, we can't get spinach from this supplier, but we have a backup supplier and it's exactly the same grade. So it's really important that we are adhering to all of those standards. I do approve every batch. I rejected a batch just last month. I wasn't very popular because it was a large batch, but it wasn't right. And I won't sell something that's not right. And we figured out what went wrong, and we've now put in new procedures to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But yeah, that's where I come in. And then I'm constantly pivoting and changing and adapting. I've also learned on this journey. The recipes have changed. We're now about to do another launch or relaunch, if you like. And this will be the 4th update or upgrade of our meals. So now I'm including things like lentils in the ragout, not to so that we're actually increasing the level of protein in the meal, but also the nutritional value of the ragout itself. So, I also learned along the way and become a bit more creative, which has been exciting and it's fun. It's a really creative, I love being in that sort of creative space and trying something. And it's so rewarding when you get it right, when what you envisioned and what you get, and you put it in front of my child, or you see someone else's child trying it and you go, oh, thank goodness, firstly, but secondly, amazing, because we've actually managed to make this better. I've managed to simplify ingredients, every step of the way, and we'll continue to do that.
You have this very expansive ethnic demographic environment in the UAE. So I imagine lentils in the sauce is probably for the South Asians that are I think they make up a very large contingent of the expat population there. We're probably really pleased with knowing that there's lentils in the sauce. What's the biggest challenge? And I recognize there's regional unrest challenges, and we'll address that in a little bit. But I'm curious about what's the biggest challenge that you're facing today within the food production industry?
Certainly here within the UAE, it's about having the right level of partners to be able to do what we want. We're quite unique in how we approach our meals and our manufacturing. What we demand is quite unique because they're so handmade, they labor intensive. And traditionally, manufacturing isn't that. It's a machine, lots of machines. And whilst obviously that means that you can make something cheaper and faster, it's not what we're about. Fundamentally, I want every single meal to look different. It's meant to be artisanal. It's handmade. It's meant to look like mum made it, but mum didn't have time tonight. I've made it for her, or one of our chefs have made it for her. And so that it has been quite a challenge, because also regionally, you obviously have people moving quite a lot in terms of jobs. It's very normal within the chef industry as well, but it happens here quite considerably more, I would say, than in other countries that I've worked in. And so just when you think you've got the dream team, then someone leaves. And then, then you got to come in and train them again and get them on board. And for me, if they're not on board and they're not educated and they don't understand and they're not fiercely advocating for our brand, then they can't be a part of our team, because they need to understand what we're trying to achieve. it's more than just about food. That can be quite challenging. And then again, the ingredients, I would say that is probably, if not number one, the second close runner-up as one of the biggest challenges, packaging and food, because it's not such a big industry yet. It's growing, it's changing, and it's changed a lot since I got here. When I first got here and I, searching for my job, putting product development, and the only thing that came up was computer science operators, or I don't know what you call them. And I literally just went, what? And I just remember phoning my husband and going, I don't exist. I don't have a job.
Well, that's what's so fascinating, right? Like this didn't exist, right? I mean, you've really had to come in and to an industry that really was very small or didn't exist. You have the challenges of people who are rotating in and out of the country. So the partners and the partnerships that you build, they quickly there's high attrition there, if you will. And then you've got, I think you mentioned the ingredients, like the food supply, that itself is a challenge. I'm curious now, because there's just so much work there. What do you have to continue to work through to keep the norms and the systems that you have to push through to make this work?
I think the big thing is training and education, but getting people on board. If people genuinely understand and are on board with not only what you're trying to do, but with the brand. I mean, I have chefs who will message me, even though they're not supposed to, and they'll say, chef, procurement have sent the wrong, a different cheddar, chef, and it's got something in it. It's not, it's not meant to be that. It's got an E number in it. It's not what we're supposed to be using. How amazing to have someone really just has your back and the brand's back. And I think that's what has really been key for us, is that I've managed to somehow just be able to get everyone on board and understand that this is just so important. And we have fun with it as well, because we are quite different. What they're making is different to what their peers are making. And I think that in itself is quite fun. They're quite fierce about our brand, which I love. But I think that's pivotal, is having people who genuinely are bought into your brand and the business and what you're trying to do, your values.
When we last spoke, you had stepped away on vacation with your boys to Mauritius, given the unrest in the region. How are you navigating that right now?
It started, if you like, on the 8th of March. It was a Saturday. And I think we were all just a bit in shock. I think living in the Middle East, there was always that risk, right? But I don't think anyone actually thought it would happen. We were actually here at my parents' home. We came to visit them. We were having a barbecue. And my husband looked at me and he said, there's been a bomb in one of the adjacent countries, right by one of our facilities. We were in the car with the children. And so he was speaking a secondary language that they don't understand. And so what we had to do was pull over so that I could drive, so that he could very quickly get on the phone. But we had to come up with, there was a fire at the factory, because obviously we didn't want to alert the children especially when we didn't know what was going on. So, tell the boys, oh dear, daddy's got an emergency. Mummy needs to drive. There's a fire at one of his factories. And we got here. And as we got out the car, we then heard a bang. And we were all sort of looking around and going, surely not. It was during Ramadan. So we thought, and my mother said, well, maybe it's one of the cannons, and they were checking whether it's working or something for iftar. And it was in the middle of the day. And I was like, I really don't think so. And you can actually see the puff of cloud in the sky. And then there was another one. And the children went straight to the pool. And then we were going, no, you need to come inside. And they're going, why? But we had no idea what was going on. You're putting on the TV, but you're trying not to let the children see. And it was just horrifying. And yeah, the UAE government managed it unbelievably. It was super scary. We got alerts on our phones. We had to shelter in place, and hearing these bombs and drones being intercepted. And I mean, we're talking about hundreds, thousands eventually, very quickly, actually. And what they managed to achieve was nothing short of a miracle. Honestly, I don't know how they did it. It was incredible. But the toll it took on my boys was huge, and very quickly. So the children weren't going to school. They were housebound. We couldn't go outside because, there was debris falling from the sky. And of course, you don't know what's going on.
I mean, at that point, where do you even take shelter where it really is safe? It's scary.
Exactly. So, we were at home and we just did the best we could. Then they brought spring break forward by a week. And so the family, we decided collectively to take the boys out of the country because their mental health, our mental health was significantly being impacted. And fundamentally, everything just went into a form of lockdown. It felt a little bit COVID-like. We got onto the plane and I cannot tell you how scary it is, but we sat on the plane and every human being on that plane who had a mobile phone, the alarms went off as we were on the runway to take off, saying, you need to shelter in place due to a situation within your area. You need to, and we were on the runway to take off and and we're talking about hundreds of phones, all with this massive siren. My children were crying, and you can't console them because you've got your seatbelt on. So you're on the runway, you can't do anything. But we got out and we got away, and it was meant to be for 2 weeks. It ended up being almost 5 weeks, just shy of 5 weeks. It was really hard. We were away from my husband for those 5 weeks. He needed to remain here in the UAE for business.
How have you been managing your business?
Our whole industry, it was the same during COVID. Hospitality and the F&B industry is always the first to be hit when it comes to these things. But luckily, we also tend to be the first to recover. But it is a huge impact. Our customer base just disappeared overnight again. People left the country. And if they didn't leave the country, they weren't necessarily buying or stocking up because they didn't know what they were doing. And they didn't know if they were staying or if they were going so it was a very odd period of time, and we're still kind of in it, but it is improving. And I'm fortunate enough, we have built this business in such a way that we have direct to customer sales, we have retail sales, and we have B2B. So right now we're suffering hugely on B2B with hotels that are sitting on critically low levels of occupancy, hotels that have shut and have, put their staff on leave, forced leave. So we're suffering there. We then have, retail uplift, which is good. And obviously it helps you, but we've had to do that, not just because of these sort of circumstances, but because of how the UAE also functions. So during summer, it's like a ghost town here, which means that your retail really slows down. So you then have to rely on other sort of channels, if you like. And that's when you get sort of B2B, you might see a slight B2B uplift and then will then dip and change. So it's been really, really tough. And ingredients, we're still struggling with getting some ingredients. My packaging is sitting on a container ship in Oman and has been for the last 6 weeks. I don't know when I'm going to get it. I hope I'm going to get it. I hope it's still there. So yeah, it's really odd. It's really bizarre. And we're just navigating it as best we can, safeguarding as much as we can. And again, had to pivot. Love that word, but just had to change. The plan was this. Not that anymore. Before I went away, it was this. It's now something else, and we were going to be relaunching with exciting new packaging and new characters. And now that's on the back burner. And now I'm prioritizing something else. So yeah. And it's frustrating. It's so frustrating, but that's life. And that certainly is what owning a business is all about.
Once the unrest is over, what's the long-term vision for NYUM Meals?
Oh, so much. My absolute ambition is to be around the world and to be helping parents all over the world. And again, the reason why we didn't invest in brick and mortar was because we wanted to create a concept that we could test, that if we can make something, concept, a brand, and achieve it consistently here, we can pick up and do exactly the same thing in another country. And that's why we did it, because I don't just want to help parents here in the UAE. I want to help parents in the US. I want to help parents in Australia. I want to help, it is a pandemic, obesity in children. It is frightening and it's soul destroying. So in terms of making that leap, we are in the process of speaking with a partner about going into other countries, certainly within the GCC. That's regional here, but then also looking at other countries such as Singapore, again, a very sort of heavy expatriate country, and other countries such as India, the UK. There's lots of opportunities. We are moving broader. You know, for me, it's a lifestyle, and I'm very much wanting to capture and support parents at each key stage of their child's life. We already do baby weaning food, and we're moving into bigger kids' meals as well, where they start experimenting on more flavor profiles and becoming more adventurous in terms of what they'll try. And then further afield as well, my ultimate goal is that we are all over the world. Everyone knows and understands NYUM. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of bringing your child up healthily, holistically. We are your village, and we're helping you every step of the way. That would be a dream come true.
You sit on the board of the Emeritus Culinary Guild, or ECG. That is an association of professional chefs that are dedicated to the advancement of the culinary arts in the UAE. And one of the issues that you mentioned and have been very active in is the lack of female representation in the culinary industry within the UAE. What is it that hinders representation?
Look, it's not just here in the UAE, it's a global thing. And I think naturally women are just not seen to be fit for purpose, if you like. And that's so ironic because, we normally are the ones who are always doing the cooking and the inspiration behind a lot of really famous male chefs. But here, you got that additional layer of the fact that women are meant to be looking after their families. I think it's a cultural thing. And whilst they supported, I'm trying to be diplomatic about it. So I think it's an unspoken rule that if you get married and you have children, that you shouldn't be working and you should be at home and looking after your children. And so women find themselves either in the industry and then having to make a decision. Is it my job and my career, or is it my family and my children? Do I have children even? Which is also a big no-no, right, here in the region. So there's when you get married, you're expected to have children as long as you can have them, obviously. And so, yeah, I think, women really do struggle with this here. And I've had women who had to go and study to be lawyers, fully qualified on the bar, got past the bar, and then, went to her father and said, right, I did what you wanted me to do. I'm now going to study to be a chef because that's what I actually wanted to do. And it's insane. It's insane that we have to prove ourselves or have to go through those hoops to be able to do what we want to do. And then sometimes, you get to do what you want to do, and it's not that easy either. I mean, being a woman in the industry myself, it's tough and it's demanding and it's hard because it's such a emotive industry. It's such a passionate industry. It's a calling. It's not something that you don't just become a chef. It's something that you grew up wanting to be, and you graft really hard to get to where you want to get to. It's not an industry that looks at you and goes, oh yes, you've got your diploma or your degree. Fantastic. Yes, you can go straight to head chef. You've still got to work all the way up in the rankings to prove yourself, even though you've worked really hard and studied and got your diploma and done all of those placements. So I suppose it's like being a doctor. It's probably the same sort of love, the same sort of heartache and pain and devotion and sacrifice is probably one of the best words to use for it.
What feels most demanding about your role at this stage?
I think still learning to understand that I need to prioritize myself more. I think as a woman, again, as a mother, as a wife, we're not very good at doing that. We tend to put everybody else ahead of ourselves. And I am very guilty of doing that for most of my life, actually, before I became a wife or a mother. And in starting a business, the cracks started to show because you don't ever leave work. When you have a job, you tend to, although I didn't, which is just my nature, but you tend to leave work and leave work at work. And then you get home and there's a divide and there's a division. But when you have your own business, there's no such thing as, okay, well, I'm on holiday or, it's the weekend. That doesn't exist. You are always working. You're always looking, researching, adapting, having to fix something, having to sort something, having to find a solution, solve a problem. And it's wearing, especially when you're a mum. I'm a mum of 2 young boys, 8 and 9, added complexity with neurodiversity. So I'm an advocate for my children. I'm an advocate for women with the Women's Culinary chapter. And I realized I wasn't really advocating for myself. And it's quite a hard pill to swallow. So yeah, I think that's something that I'm still learning to do. I'm getting much better at it. But if I don't have my health and my mental well-being, I can't be a good mother. I can't be a good wife. I can't be, an effective entrepreneur or successful. I can't do what I want to do, which is help so many other parents so that they don't feel or get to the point that I got to. And so, yeah, I've had to do that. I've had to say, nope, I'm going to go and exercise, or I'm going to go for a walk with the dog, or I'm going to put myself, not first, I haven't quite got there yet. So hopefully I will get there one day, but put myself higher up in the rankings.
You touch upon the fundamental piece of what we focus on in this show. And that really is about what you personally have to do in order to sustain yourself in your profession. And you're right, it is very demanding. And you touched upon something around like boundaries. And I'm curious, what boundaries have you set up now in order to allow yourself to walk the dog or go for a walk? What boundaries have you been intentional about setting?
I think the biggest thing I had to come to terms with, because I wasn't switching off between work and non-work, and was that I had to acknowledge that there were going to be days that were messier when my family needed me more. And that was okay. And today just isn't going to be a work day, and I need to accept it, because I can switch on my laptop at 10 o'clock at night, kill myself and ruin the next day. Or I can just acknowledge that I had to show up in a different way today for my family. Hopefully I was successful in what I needed to do. And then tomorrow is another day and show up for work. And I had to learn to accept that. It's okay. It's okay to be there for my family. It's okay to also not be there for my family, given that it's the right time, it's the right place, it's the right context. I've had to learn to say no. I'm not very good at that either. And I think, as entrepreneurs, I think we can be quite guilty of that. As perfectionists, you can be guilty of that. As chefs, we are very guilty of that. And as women, we're very guilty of that. And I've had to learn to say no to a lot, learn to prioritize, which is a skill set, really. I think that's something you learn with age. It's something that comes with experience and knowledge and age and support, to be able to prioritize what is important, be it work or be it family or be it with, the layering within work even, because if you don't, you just end up having a stupidly long list that just carries over every single day. And that's neither good for your mental health nor productive. So yeah, I think, the setting those hard lines in terms of saying what is going to be the day ahead, and also being flexible enough to be able to pivot, because I am not naturally inclined that way. So if I've got my day planned ahead, I'm a planner. And then, something comes along, as life does. And I think when I was younger, that would ruin my day. And I've had to learn how to pivot and to adjust and move around and go, okay, well, that didn't happen today, but we'll do it tomorrow. And that means that that's going to have to come out, or it doesn't happen at all. Does it really have to happen? Is that important?
You've been in this industry for a long time, and you are able to say no now. And I think that's progress. When you say no, what are you saying yes to?
I'm saying yes to things that are actually going to move the needle. So I think when I started this journey, could have been busy for busy's sake rather than productive. And I think that is, again, something I had to learn being an entrepreneur, that it's really important to go grab that low-hanging fruit and to prioritize the ones that are higher at the top, and to understand if they really are worth going after. Is it really going to do what I set out to achieve or wanted to do? If it isn't, then you really need to decide whether or not it's worth it, because it's just filling up your bucket and not adding to it in a positive way.
Do you have a typical day?
I think, people often expect quite a structured answer to this, but in reality, I'm still, kind of just trying to wear all the hats that I have to wear to the best of my ability. No 2 day is really the same. My mornings are the same. I'll give you that. It's an early start. I've got 2 young children. We've got school. I've got one that homeschools. I've got one that goes to school, and that's a super early start. They're at school at 7:15. So it's early doors, and it's just about trying to have a really positive, calm start to our day and getting everyone ready. My husband takes my eldest son to school, and then I prepare my youngest for homeschooling. And then from there, this is where the heart lines have started to come in, where I go for a walk. I don't get in it every day, but I do try and do something for myself. If it's going for a walk, or it's doing some exercise, or reading, or just doing something positive for myself, giving myself something back. And I really do try and carve that out at the start of the day. I was always trying to do it at the end of the day. It never works. And I was always exhausted. So I now really do try and get that in. And then from there, it's on to work. And that is so diverse in itself, because I might be in production doing a trial, or I might be going in to taste something, or I might be meeting with a retailer or a customer, or I might be doing training, with a new B2B customer who, we be training the chefs on how to heat the meals and how they can serve them in various different ways in the hotel. Or I work heavily with the local municipalities and government, also trying to establish a really good foundation for healthy eating for children here in the UAE. So we're all trying to align. So it's really diverse in terms of what I might be getting up to, picking up children, taking them to, extracurricular activities, and coming up with new ideas, jotting them down, trying to remember what it was that I was meant to be doing in terms of, again, reviewing and understanding, is it going to move the needle? Is it going to get us to our objective? Are we delivering quality and consistency without compromise and helping parents? If the answer is no, we move on. If the answer is yes, great. Go as quickly as you can, as fast as you can, and as best as you can.
What time are you shutting down, not looking at the computer?
My day starts at 6. Yeah, we're up at 6. My husband is a demon. He's up at 4:30, I think, and he's out for a run. I wish I had that kind of tenacity. I don't. But then again, I think, we complement each other, and we provide each other with the things that we need in order to be able to do the things that are really important to us. And my children have a very strict routine. They thrive on routine. That's important. So I'm in bed with them by 7 o'clock reading books. My eldest will listen to an audiobook. George and I will read, and then everyone is asleep by, I say everyone, the children are asleep by 7:30, 8:45 at the latest, just because we're up so early. And then, then it's on to me and to my husband. And that's when we get some time to kind of recap, have a chat. And inevitably, so much has happened within the day, or there's things happening within the week, or again, making adjustments. There's always some sort of activity that someone has to dress up for. Someone's got, a concert, or, please can you take so-and-so to this play date, or whatever the case may be. But that's when we come together and we'll have a meal. It's super late. We don't always eat at that time. It might be that I'll eat with the children, or if my husband comes back later, he'll have eaten at work.
But you find that time for both of you to connect and to kind of recalibrate on what's coming up. I find myself doing the same thing. I think I let my husband and I are kind of talk about, my children are 14 and 12, so they're a little bit more, they're more independent than the age that you're in right now with 8 and 9. But it is, setting aside that time to kind of recalibrate with your partner, with your husband, that you need that time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're both in the same industry, but he's very operationally led and got such a different role.
What's the one word or phrase that defines how you sustain yourself at this level?
I believe the word is anchored, because if I'm not anchored in myself, in my values, in the why we started NYUM, and it's not just because I wanted to help other people. It's also because I wanted to create a business that will support my family, and also be able to have the flexibility to be able to spend more time with my family, which I didn't have when I was working for someone else. There are lots of whys. It's not just one why. And so, that anchoring and just remaining centered, and just, when there's so much noise everywhere, just remember, come back to the reason, the purpose. Why did I start this? Who am I doing it for? What does success actually look like? And it just brings clarity. It brings, some days my business needs more, some days my family needs more, but it's, as long as I'm anchored in my purpose and my values and in the reality, I just, you don't lose yourself in the process and you stay true north.
With all the pivots and the shifts that you've had to make along the way, what has this taught you about leadership?
I've always been a firm believer that, you lead from the top. And I think, having worked for small businesses, for SMEs, if you like, and worked for very large businesses, I am not corporate material, by the way. It's such good education because you can see how to do it right and how not to do it. And there are some incredible people, and I've been blessed to work for some incredible people or work with incredible people and to learn from them and to add that to my little list of things to do and how to behave and how to work with people, alongside people, and to get people on board. I mean, I know we touched on this earlier. I'm a firm believer that you cannot expect something or someone to be as devoted to your business, and they never will be. It's not their business. But to be invested in someone else's business, you've really got to get them on the wagon with you and not just trust you, but believe in what you're doing and want to go on the journey with you, especially when, you're in your infancy and still, in that toddler phase where it's super messy and you keep falling down and then you got to pick yourself up and then you got a bruise on your head and a bump over there. And, you just got to keep going. It really is messy, but if you do it right and you invest in people, it comes back tenfold. It really does. So yeah, I think that's something for me has just been understanding that you can invest in people financially, but you can also invest in people through time, through education. And that's also a fine line to tread because I think, you can give too much of your time to certain people. There can be people that are vacuum machines that drain from you and just take and take and take. And I think you've got to be aware of those people because that can be incredibly draining and counterintuitive. And it's not good to have those sorts of people in a small business, obviously. And then you can have people that really, again, add to your bucket and add to your business and want to contribute. The people only want to do that if they feel like they're invested in the business and they feel like they can make a difference and they feel like they can do something. And so I think that's been the big thing for me. I think those are the key things for me is just remembering that everyone's human. Everyone's got a life. Everyone's living a life behind what they bring to work. And whilst you're not really meant to bring home to work, I don't think you're human if you don't.
Thanks for listening. I hope today's conversation gave you a moment to pause and to consider not just how you lead, but how you're living along the way. If this episode resonated, consider sharing it with someone navigating their own version of leadership at the top. You can also continue the conversation by following on your favorite platform with the handle LeadStyle Way. Until next time, live fully to lead fully.